What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. First episode
Coming
of
at you.
something
What's
new.
that?
I said first episode of something new.
Yeah, coming out with a little bit something new. Maybe we'll have to call it Torah Tuesday since today it's in Genesis.
Yeah.
uh, but we're coming out. I think Jake and I have both decided this year, or as we come into a new year, that we're trying to work on a relationship with God and try to figure out what that means in today's day and age. So we decided that we would just start reading. I have a little bit of an understanding of Hebrew, and I've studied the Bible quite a bit previously in my life, and I've kind of fallen away from that. So, again, I think for me, most importantly, is that the goal of this and the goal of just me in general reading the Bible is to try to have a better understanding what a relationship with God means in today's day and age. And I think that can sometimes be difficult when we go into a book that was written thousands of years ago and saying, how does this apply to
Mm-hmm.
me? And when it comes to praying or having a relationship with God, I'd say the thing that I've struggled with the most here in the recent years is if I pray or if I would say mainly if I'm trying to pray, I'm having a one-way conversation, and sometimes I don't feel that response. Whereas me and Jake, we could speak, and I ask him a question, and he's able to answer that question. Or sometimes, you share love through hugs and through actionable items, and sometimes, well, a lot of the time, that's been really difficult to do, especially when you're going through maybe some challenging trials or difficult times. And maybe it's not just that they're difficult, but that you want to know what the best way to accomplish this goal is, or to take what path to take in life. And when you don't really have much direction from the supreme being, the creator of the universe, it can be difficult. So my goal is to try to figure out, what does that look like? How do you go about that? And how do we walk? I mean, what are your thoughts? What are you trying to accomplish?
I mean, like you said, it was. I mean, we've both fallen out of. Um, I don't know, being close with God and just religion in general. For me, I guess it's. I mean, we were both raised pretty religious, and like we said, it used to be. This used to be something that we would do on Saturdays usually, where we would just get together, kind of read the Bible, talk about it a little bit. I was a lot younger, but I don't know. It's just we were both raised religious and then fell out, and this is just kind of us trying to get back into it. And I don't know. Recently, it just feels like the emphasis for religion is a lot more important. I don't know. It's maybe just life events, whatever, but it just makes you want to come back to it. It's interesting, like people that I talk to, whether it be I don't know, just in life in general, or just whether it be my friends or whether it be siblings or whatever, it seems like now more than ever, or well, recently, it seems like they're kind of in that same position where it's you used to be religious, but then you kind of fell out, but now you're kind of making your way back. And yeah, like kind of the reason we made the Monty's Gems podcast was because we weren't really talking a whole lot to each other, so we wanted to talk more to each other. And then this is kind of a secondary thing. If we liked doing a regular podcast, we would start a second one and have it be a little bit more religious. That was kind of the idea from the beginning. So this is kind of us getting our relationship with God and religion isn't so great. So maybe this is us trying to build on that a little bit.
Yeah, and I would say, particularly with me, if I can share a little bit of my story, is that I was very deep inside of religions, very, very religious in terms of that. And there were some things that happened that I felt like people were using God or their roles inside of a church or a leadership to try to tell me how I should do things, or to try to control me and to try to control others. And it just left a really hurt spot in my heart. And there was sadness from it, and I think some of it felt like I don't understand how God could allow this to happen. But as I've grown older and as I've progressed, is that I realized that it was up to me to set those boundaries and to stand up for those things. And even though people were older, it was, I think we were both raised respect your elders and stuff like that. But there's a fine line between respecting your also elders and also standing up for who you are as a person and as a human being, and making sure that you're not just taken advantage of or just controlled your whole
Yeah.
life. And so for me, that was a really big deal. And I think me coming back to this is that as I've tried to find deep friendships and closeness in friendships, there's one thing I come back to, and I'm quite particular about who I choose for my friends and who I want to have a relationship with and who I spend time talking to, is how fruitful and how deep of a conversation I can get. And a lot of it has to do with how people are empathetic about their problems or their issues or their life, and they're willing to share and they're willing to be vulnerable. And oftentimes, um, I have this stronger relationship with people who have a fear of God and they trust in God. And so as I realized that I'm trying to separate myself, because I think previously I was trying to appease everybody. And so if I could agree with someone on something specific over here, but we didn't have the same foundational truths, is that, oh, I could still try to be friends with them, still try to make that friendship work and try to hang out. And to where now I've kind of came to the conclusion that my foundational truths are important and I'm not willing to negotiate on those. And so I'm not going to continue to try to be friends or appease people who don't believe the same things that I do, just because I feel alone or that I want to have a feeling of friendships and stuff like that. And it's time that I start standing up for my truths, for my beliefs, for who Chad is. And I start deciding who my friends are and who I want to be around based on those things versus based on everything else, whether it's money, whether it's how they seem to be, or those types of things. And it's really taking part of me standing up for my true beliefs and not kind of falling to the right or to the left with those things, which I feel like I had done previously just to be able to fit in with a crowd or to be liked or to be around people. I followed a very different idea of what religion is in terms of Christianity and Judaism, and there's no need to get into that. But it's difficult for me to fit in those places, mainly because if I share my beliefs, people try to change me and make me uncomfortable, and it almost just feel like left out because I'm not equal to them, or I'm less of a person because of those beliefs. And so um, it's time for me to continue to just be confident in what I do believe, but also wanting to be a student and realizing that I don't know everything that there is to know, and I'm here to learn. And through this podcast, hopefully being able to connect with other people who teach, who share. But this is the thing that's going to be really important for me in this podcast, is that I don't want to put God inside of a box, and I don't want to give him definitions of who he is and what he is to other people and how they should act and what they should do. Um, because I think once we start doing that, then people feel like they have to follow other people and what they say versus feeling what they believe God says. And it's, I think, a great example of that is, our dad. Uh, if someone was to tell me who he was, it's going to be different than what I experienced
Mm-hmm.
with him. And if I just took what they said and who he was, and I didn't allow what I experienced with him and all those things to be who he was, then my life would be completely different of what I thought of him than what I actually experienced and I got to see. So my goal is to try to be able to experience God and to understand God and to have a relationship with him versus it just being words and hearsay of how other people have presented him.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's really important is just having your own individual experience. People can share their stories about whatever. They can share the words, they can share everything relating to their life, but you're never going to know what it truly feels like until you feel it for yourself. So you have to understand what God is for you and who that is and how he can help you in your life and just bring that bond a little bit closer is something that I'm struggling with. Is a big reason that I feel like religion is so important is just, I know anxiety is such like a buzzword nowadays, but it's like, I don't know, the fear of death is something that's, I don't know, plays a big role in my life, I guess. Is I think about it a lot. It's like the thought of dying, and then the thought of, okay, what if there's nothing after I'm dead? Then what is that? Like, we live in such this little tiny blink of time in comparison to everything else. And it's like, okay, well, what happens after I die? Like, is everything gone? What happens? And I feel like religion is so important in that, with just the idea of an afterlife. And that's not saying to believe in a religion just to make yourself feel a little bit better about dying, but I don't know, just to get informed of all of the different religions. And then I don't know, it's just, religion has personally helped me a lot with the idea of anxiety and just the idea of death in general, I guess. So,
So that's interesting because I would say up until probably between oh 6 and 8 months ago, I had a huge fear of dying, like going on planes, worrying about like going into big sports arenas, like I had shared with you
yeah.
previously, and just the thought of losing my life. And then inside of these last few months, I've been doing a lot of searching on my own and personal development, and also creating more confidence in me. And I've came to this conclusion where each and every day is my own. And I've tried to understand what makes Chad happy, what brings me purpose, what brings me fulfillment. And one of the big things that's came from that has been laughter, is making
Mm-hmm.
people laugh, is laughing myself. And that if I can laugh every day and I can enjoy all these moments that I have, I don't really care what happens afterwards. And again, I think it's about, withholding the temporary pleasures and, just being a jerk and being a kind and a decent person. But if I can take pleasure in the small things in each and every day and laugh and have fun, a lot of that pressure of what is to come, or what do I need to do tomorrow, or I hope I can have this, or I hope I can
Right.
have that I've been able to be more comfortable with, is that I'm living the life that I want to today versus trying to prepare for the life that I want to live in the future.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, with the anxiety aspect. And I think we'll get a lot into a lot of this. To Before we get started, one thing that I wanted to share is, in Hebrew thought, there are four different ways of interpreting scripture, and the phrase that they use is called paradise. It's pronounced pardes in Hebrew, and it represents four different levels of interpretation. The very first one is the Peshat level. The Peshat level is when you read a piece of information, a book, and you take it for its plain and its simple meaning.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. The second level of interpretation is called the remez. And so the remez, it comes from the implied meaning of what the scripture is saying. And an example of that is where it talks about in the Bible, an eye for an eye. So if one person causes another person to lose his eye, that
Mm-hmm.
person loses their eye. If one person loses their tooth, that person loses their tooth. And it's hand for a hand, foot for a foot. So it's implied that it's meaning every part of your body, or ox for an ox, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
One thing gets taken away, it gets taken away from the other, or reimbursed. The third level is called the drash. And then this level is where you're searching for a hidden meaning. However, whenever we go to these deeper levels of interpretation, they can never contradict that very first Peshat simple meaning. So if you have something that's very simple and you can understand it, these other levels can't go and then contradict that.
Mm.
The last level is called the Sod level. And the Sod, that's where it comes from, the hidden meaning. And when it talks about hidden meaning, there's something specific in the Hebrew language. One of the reasons that I think it's so beautiful, it's called gematria. And what gematria is that each one of the Hebrew letters represents a number. So Aleph, very first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, is 1. So it's essentially like Roman numerals, like we have in the English language, but each letter is representative of a number. And so what they will do in Hebrew is that they will take a word, and let's say it's the name Yaakov, who we're going to be learning about today, which is Jacob, and they add up all the letters in that name, and then they find other names or other words that have that same addition of numbers, and they try to correlate them and how they mean the same things. Sometimes this is very, very mystical and spiritual to where it's very far out. But it's just another way of how scripture can be interpreted. So that was something I want to share. I don't know how many people know about that or anything like that. And it's just very interesting how you can have different eyes on scripture and how it can be viewed. Not to say that one is wrong or one is right. But one of the interesting things is that I asked Jake what he wanted to read. And he talked about the story of Jacob and Esau and Isaac. And what was very, very, I think, eye-opening to me is that in the Jewish religion, they have what is called a Torah calendar. And so where they'll go through the whole part of the Torah cycle from Genesis all the way to Deuteronomy. And what was amazing is that we're starting on the week, and this exact area of what you chose is actually this week's Torah portion.
Wow,
so
okay.
It's exactly in line with where it is there. Now, again, we're talking about trying to combine. We want to unite as many other people as possible who are here and who fear God and who trust in God. So we're not trying to be denominational. We're just trying to unite everybody and try to separate the differences in terms of our learning, our studying, to be able to understand and have that closeness in the relationship with God. So we're starting out, very first book of the Bible, Genesis, Bereshit in Hebrew, chapter 25. We're going to read a chapter. We'll discuss afterwards, and then the other person will read. So anything else you want to say, Jake?
No, I think just a little. You pretty much went over everything, but just a little kind of a layout of this. It's going to be a little bit shorter than our other our Monty's Gems podcast, but it's going to, basically be we read a little bit of scripture, we talk about it, we break it down, and then that's kind of it. We have our closing thoughts, and that's pretty much it. It'll be a little bit shorter, but I think we're going to try to upload these on Tuesday or maybe even Wednesday, or some weeks it'll be the weekends or something like that. But
Yeah, just so it's available for everybody to see. And I think one of the things about this that I would also like to be a little bit unique is that I want it to be a little bit more of a laid back setting where sometimes when you're going into a Bible study, it's super strict and structured and professional and there's not much laughing or anything like that. And I think there's a lot of questions inside this book of like things that happen. And you're just like, what in the world was going on there? How does it apply to our life today? And like, what was the scenario back then that just makes like, wow, like, I think, we're going to see some very interesting things.
Right.
So,
yeah.
We'll get started. Genesis chapter 25. And Abraham took another wife, and her name was Keturah. And she bore Zimram, and Jokshan, and Medan, and Midian, and Jishbak, and Shua. And Jokshan begot Sheba, and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Asherum, Letushim, and Leumim. And the sons of Midian were Ephah, and Epher, and Enoch, and Abida, and Eldiah. All these were the sons of Keturah. And Abraham gave all that he possessed to Isaac. And the sons of Abraham's concubines, Abraham gave gifts, and he sent them away from his son Isaac while Abraham, was still alive, eastward to the land of the east. And these are the days of Abraham's life that he lived, 100 years and 70 years and 5 years. And Abraham expired and died in a good old age, old and satisfied, and he was gathered to his people. And Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him in the cave of Machpelah and the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar, the Hittite, which faces Mamre. The field that Abraham had bought from the sons of Heth, there Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried. Now it came to pass after Abraham's death that God blessed his son Isaac. Isaac dwelt near Ber Lahai Roi. Now these are the generations of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, whom Hagar, the Egyptian, the maidservant of Sarah, bore to Abraham. And these are the names of the sons of Ishmael, by their names, according to their births. The firstborn of Ishmael was Nebaioth, and Kedar, and Abdiel, and Mibsam, and Mishma, and Duma, and Massa, Hadad, and Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedma. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names, in their open cities and in their walled cities. 12 princes to their nations. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 130 years and 7 years. And he expired and died, and was gathered to his people. And they dwelt from Havilah to Shur, which borders on Egypt, moving towards Ashur. Before all his brothers he dwelt. And these are the generations of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Aramean, to himself for a wife. And Isaac prayed to the Lord opposite his wife because she was barren. And the Lord accepted his prayer, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled within her. And she said, If it be so, why am I like this? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 kingdoms will separate from your innards. And one kingdom will become mightier than the other kingdom, and the elder will serve the younger. And her days to give birth were completed, and behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first one emerged ruddy. He was completely like a coat of hair, and they named him Esau. And afterwards his brother emerged, and his hand was grasping Esau's heel, and he named his name Jacob. Now Isaac was 60 years old when she gave birth to them. And the youths grew up, and Esau was a man who understood hunting, a man of the field, whereas Jacob was an innocent man dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because his game was in his mouth, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Now Jacob cooked the pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, Pour into me some of this red pottage, for I am faint. He was therefore named Edom. And Jacob said, Sell me of this day your birthright. Esau replied, Behold, I am going to die, so why do I need this birthright? And Jacob said, Swear to me as of this day. So he swore to him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and a pottage of lentils, and he ate and drank, and arose and left. And Esau despised the birthright. Did you have any highlights or anything to add about that?
Just something that kind of general ideas on reading scripture is typically like reading lineage and like reading the family trees and how many years everybody had, and typically that's like kind of where I feel like a general idea is that's kind of where everybody loses interest. But I feel like it's so important to kind of be able to connect the families together and just see how everything kind of connects. It for me, honestly, it doesn't. Most of it doesn't stick. It's just the main people who the stories are about that I remember, because a lot of them I don't remember and are brought up very rarely sometimes. But I feel like even though it's such a boring part of it, it's important nonetheless, I guess.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things again is with the Hebrew language is the names and how much different they are than in English. So Esau is Esav is how that's pronounced, and then Jacob is Yaakov. Okay. So there's a much different pronunciation when it comes to Hebrew than when it comes to English. But again, each name, and I think I had shared this previously in a podcast, is when in Hebrew you have longer words that get broken down into smaller words. And like the word for water is mayim, and the word for sky is hashamayim. So there's a couple letters added to that, but their resemblance. So the sky is blue, water. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So a lot of these things can be broken down into similar forms to where the name Esau actually resembles, I think it was Harry. I don't remember the exact name for that. And then I had Yaakov too, but I don't remember. One of the things that's interesting to me, and this is going back into some of the theories, is that when it talks about the struggling that Rebecca had when inside her belly, so it said that when she would pass by a house of prayer or a house of study, it was Esau, or I'm sorry, it was Jacob that was the one struggling in her stomach.
Huh.
And then if she passed by a place of idol worship, Esau would be the one struggling. And then, they were both struggling with themselves over the inheritance in her stomach. These are some of the
Right.
theories that are said with that. And so, again, with the Old Testament, there's books upon books where if the Old Testament is this big, there are, hundreds and hundreds of
Right.
thick books about each idea and what was done and what was said. So that's where a lot of this comes to. How do we decide what is truth, what is not truth, but most importantly, how's it applicable today, and what does this mean to us?
Right. And like you were saying, or not like you were saying, but when we were talking about the ideas for this podcast, it was you sent me a couple links, and it was like breakdowns of each verse of the Bible, and it goes so in depth to the point where it's like breaking down each word into multiple like sentences or sometimes paragraphs, and it just goes to the extreme of breaking down literally every single word and how it correlates to the rest of the words in the sentence. And I think it's fascinating how you can read through a chapter, but there's enough there to break it down into a whole couple pages.
Well, yeah, and that was just one small little
Mm-hmm.
commentary.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, this is the written tradition. There's also an oral tradition with the Mishnah. There's a Talmud, and there's just so many books upon books upon books about these specific 5 books of the Bible, and then the Tanakh, which is the rest of the books in the Old Testament. So it can get very very in depth, which I'd say as somebody like me, I struggle with because I enjoy trying to be perfect and try to get everything right and
Mm-hmm.
understanding. But sometimes it just gets overwhelming because these are so many traditions and just types of I don't know, different differentiations of beliefs and stuff. So
Right. Anything else you want to add before we get to the next one?
nope, that was it.
Alrighty. Chapter 26. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the previous famine in Abraham's time, and Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. I will tell your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and will give them all these lands. And through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because Abraham obeyed me and did everything I required of him, keeping my commands, my decrees, and my instructions. So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men of that place asked him about his wife, he said, She is my sister, because he was afraid to say, She is my wife, he thought. He thought, The men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah, because she is beautiful. When Isaac had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. So Abimelech summoned Isaac and said, She is really your wife? Why did you say she is my sister? Isaac answered him, Because I thought I might lose my life on account of her. Then Abimelech said, What is this you have done to us? One of the men might have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. So Abimelech gave orders to all the people, Anyone who harms this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with earth. Then Abimelech said to Isaac, Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us. So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar, where he settled. Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up before stopped up after Abraham died, and he gave them the same names his father had given them. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water there. But the herders of Gerar quarreled with those of Isaac and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Esek, because they disputed with him. Then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that one also, so he named it Sitnah. He moved on from there and dug another well, and no one quarreled over it. He named it Rehoboth, saying, "Now the Lord has given us room, and we will flourish in the land." From there he went up to Beersheba. That night the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you, and I will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham." Isaac built an altar there and called the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servants dug a well. Meanwhile, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar with Ahazath, his personal adviser, and Phicol, the commander of his forces. Isaac asked them, "Why have you come to me, since you were hostile to me and sent me away?" They answered, "We saw clearly that the Lord was with you, so we said, they ought to be a sworn agreement between us and you. Let us make a treaty, that you will do us no harm, just as we did not harm you, but always treated you well and sent you away peacefully. And now you are blessed by the Lord." Isaac then made a feast for them, and they ate and drank. Early the next morning, the men swore an oath to each other. Then Isaac sent them on their way, and they went away peacefully. That day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well they had dug. They said, "We found water." He called it Sheba. And to this day the name of the town has been Beersheba. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and also Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah.
What are your thoughts on some of that? So I'd say the first thing for me is, especially in this chapter right here, it talks a lot about, "I will multiply your seed like the stars of the heaven." How important it was for them to have a descendants and a huge family, and essentially that inheritance continued to go down and large and spread. And what is the importance of that in today's day and age? With how much money it costs to be able to provide for yourself and to have a family and to do all these things. But we're so far removed from what necessities are in this world to what wants are, to where I think
Yeah.
sometimes we don't even comprehend what we really, really need and what is truly important. And that's one of the things that I've struggled with. We've gotten like all this clothes, and we have to have a specific car, and we're so fortunate on the amount of work we can do to be able to essentially provide for ourselves. And then not only that, but everything after work is all maybe entertainment. And that we're to a point now where we can work to be able to provide for our families, and then after work we can go and spend time working on our bodies, and trying to develop them, and having healthy meals and having enjoyable meals that are great for the tongue. Whereas, and as we read in the Bible, a lot of these things were only available during specific feasts or bigger times where they were taking the cow or whatever it was, and they had to use like every single piece of the cow to be able to eat it, to be able to have food.
Right.
And like right now my meals are very bland, just chicken and rice, and I wonder if sometimes it was just very much like that, like each and every day in and day out, it was the same thing over and over and over again, to where now we're just so fortunate with all the options that we have when it just comes to food. Like how many millions and millions and millions of options, and not
Right.
even options, but restaurants and where there are to eat. And so I think, just how far removed we are from that, and trying to understand what is the importance of having kids, of your family? Well, where is that now?
Right. And I think to expand on that a little bit, we talked about uh, on a different episode that our bare necessities are met, so therefore we have so much other, maybe not so necessary stuff to worry about, and we get caught up in all of this. Just everything is there's so much to focus on, so much to keep us distracted. There's so much technology now where you can go get distracted any time of the day, all the time. You can get distracted 24/7 all the time. Whereas back in those days, I feel like it was survival, and family was a lot more really focused on, because that's what you had. You had family. You were worried about getting food. You were worried about where you were staying. You were worried about cattle, whatnot. But now it's just you have a place to stay. You have so many vast options of food. You have everything at your disposal. So you start worrying about everything and anything that they wouldn't have had to worry about as before.
Well, you have access to so much. Like you go to social media and you have access to all these people all over the world versus back in these times, it was you and your group of people that were living within, what, probably like a mile radius. Like how
Right.
long are you going to walk to
Right.
go see somebody or your buddy or your friend or anything like that? And then secondly, it goes back to what I was saying earlier with those foundational truths and those values and those moral standards. Like these guys weren't going to be going and hanging out with people who had completely opposing views or
Yeah.
beliefs. And those times, those people were killing you. So what I'm wondering now is during today's day and age is maybe they're not physically harming us uh, and showing a potential threat to our physical bodies, but what are they doing to our mental states and our spiritual bodies? Because the things that we look at, the things that we taste, the things that we hear, we internalize all these things and they go into our mind and they do cause some type of change inside of us. Sometimes I don't think we realize what that change is or how they affect us, but they do. And so we have to be able to filter those things out. And that's why, for me, like this is really important to be able to start putting up those filters, because if you bring those guards down, and as we go back into, I think, verse 7, where it was talking about Isaac
Mm-hmm.
telling them that it was his sister, and a lot of that had to do because he was afraid of what would happen to him versus just having a strong belief. Hey, this is my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's beautiful. You guys probably think she's hot, but you're not going to get with her. She's mine. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
Right.
it's like setting that standard because he thought, well, they're just going to kill me. Like they're going to say, oh, well, all we do is get rid of this dude, and then we can go get
Right.
that chick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, uh, is that lack of faith? What is that?
Hmm. Interesting.
And then I think one of the other things that I've really thought about with this, what we're doing, and then going through the Bible, is there's two big strong points of unification between people who seem to be religious. One is to have the fear of God. The other is to have trust in God.
Hmm.
And from what I've seen is that while having trust in God is good, oftentimes it requires less effort on our parts for us to be faithful to God and to maybe be more particular in what we do. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I trust that God's going to provide for me, so maybe I'm not going to go find a job. Or, well, God told me that I should go out and, you know, anything.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it can be used as things that would be against what the Bible might say previously, or whatever that might be. However, when you think about someone who fears God, they're always watching, they're always trying to be careful about what they do, where their heart attitude is. And so, in my opinion, it seems like it's just that fear of God seems to have more importance than that trust in God, because of how much easier it is to manipulate or to just remove yourself from it. Say, oh, I trust in God. I trust in this. I trust in that. Now, do you think the things are going to just happen and I don't have to do anything? And I know that that's not what it's meant to be, and that both are important. It's just when I see people who are fear God, it seems like they're just more on a moral path. If
Mm.
that's a word that they're using more often than not, because they really are striving to do their best, versus someone who just says their trust and they're just putting all their faith in the Lord, and that's
Right.
all they have to do. It's actions versus words.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I never really thought about that. It was always, hmm. I always thought about it like just the idea of trusting, but that I never thought how important the fear of God actually was because, yeah, I guess now that I think about it, it's like, yeah, sure, you can trust in God and you believe that he sent his only son and he died on the cross and he died for our sins, and if you accept that, then you'd go to heaven and you'd be forgiven and saved and whatnot. But that whole fear of God is, if you truly live with fear of God, it's you want to be the best version of yourself, and you live by his word and what is right, and you take that into every situation. And sure, that's not to say that sometimes it life will get the best of you and you overreact, or you, I don't know, you go off on somebody or something. But it's just that idea of taking it into everyday life and being the person that God would want you to be, and try to live that best life and to love everybody as you would want them to love you, regardless of how they treat you. It's, yeah, I guess I never thought about that, but that's very interesting.
And that's where this big inner struggle for me is coming from when we have two huge religions. Whereas Christianity is extremely welcoming, and to people who want to get to know God and want to be welcomed and don't want to be alone, and they're loving, and they're trying to bring them in and help people get out of what they would call the world, or what is sin, or hardships in life, and in developing that trust in God and trust in God. But then when you go and you look at Judaism, and they are following these laws and these rules, and they're trying to do their best because they have fear of God. They've seen what has happened to the Jewish people when they fall back, and they get out of having that. They go to worship foreign idols and do those types of things. They have that comprehension and that understanding, into where both look at each other and they don't see the love that there is for God, and their
Mm.
love is there is for people, because in Christianity the love for those people is God's creation. And so it's a piece of God that they're loving and they're accepting and that they're allowing in. Because if you believe God and you love God, you have to be able to accept all of his creation and everything that he has put here on this earth. If you believe that he is the creator of the universe, he's created every single thing. And so we have to have respect for each individual piece, object that he has done, whether
Hmm.
it's animals. And again, you go into the kosher laws. That's why how the Jewish laws for killing an animal, they've done it to where it's very, very. The term is losing my mind, to where they try to do it as quick as possible, as seamless as possible, so that the animal is not hurt or damaged.
Mm.
They try to make it sharp, and so everything is done in a very because of that. But also trying to fear the things that he says not to do, versus just trust in him, and things have changed, and so I don't
Mm.
really have to worry about that as much. Both are important.
Hmm. Yeah. And
And
another thing that I wanted to say about this is the idea of having a religious podcast, and a religious podcast based off of the word that's brought to us by the Bible, I guess, is, I am by no means an expert on the subject of religion. I'm speaking for myself in that aspect. You're a lot more educated on the subject than I am, particularly, but I think that's just, there's something so special to it, is that we can have this discussion, and maybe I'm not as well informed as everybody else or whoever. It's the idea that I can not be an expert on a subject and just come here to learn about it, and that way maybe other people who are uninformed about the word can learn too. It doesn't have to be discussion that goes over. You don't have to be an expert to talk about the subject. I guess it's just the idea that you can take it for what it is, and we can break it down and just learn about it. I guess.
Yeah, and that's our whole intention is just be able to learn because let's face is that we're all on a different journey. We're all in different spots in this world geographically in terms of age. I'm at a different age than you're at. There's people who are, 4 or 5 years old who are at a much different age as that as well. But what's unique is that if we're all trying our best and we're all trying to understand no matter what it is, that's what's important. There was somebody who I was at the gym today and they were saying, oh, I'm next month's going to be terrible because there's going to be a lot more people there.
Mm.
And to me, when there's more people there and when people are having those New Year's resolutions, it's really encouraging because it helps me see that there's other people that are pursuing the exact same thing that I'm pursuing. And that is to be better tomorrow than they are today and being better today than they were yesterday. Like they're just trying to do the best that they know how. And
Right.
that's encouraging. It's like, hey, like you're going to rest in between sets. So can I jump in now? If they don't let you, then okay, well that sucks. And then hopefully
Right.
those people don't keep coming to the gym,
Yeah.
But it's really encouraging to see that other people are just trying to do the same thing. I think that's what's encouraging about maybe going to church is that you have other people that had something in their heart that hit them to where they realize that they need to change. They need to try to have a relationship with God. They're not quite sure what that means, but you know what? I'm showing up. And that's what it's about, right?
Mm.
You show up to the gym one day and then you go another day and then you go another day and you read the Bible one day and then you read it another day and it's all progress. You go to work one day and you're a dishwasher and you don't know how to clean dishes. You don't know how to turn
Mhm.
it on or put the soap in and soap's hitting you in the face.
Mhm.
And you know what? After 2 months, you're almost an expert at washing those
Mhm.
dishes.
Mhm.
We all have to start somewhere, and we're just trying to, I guess, enjoy this time that we have with each other, and might as well video record it because
Mhm.
why not? And if others can learn from it, and they want to join our community, and they can share, and we can all kind of have unity and create a community,
Mhm.
great.
Yeah. I think another thing that I wanted to build off of what you were saying is seeing those New Year's resolution people and being at the gym, and then just because you go to the gym and then you go to the gym and then you go to the gym, it's kind of like with anything else. It's even if you are going to the gym every day, that doesn't mean you can stop going to the gym. It's a constant I want to be better tomorrow than I am today. So it's you have to keep doing these things. That's like same with religion. It's well, I went to church last week or I was reading the Bible or I was praying yesterday. So I don't have to do all that stuff today. It's this is something to live by, and it's something that you should be doing each and every day. And you even though you may know what's in the Bible, there's still so much to learn and so many different perspectives and takes that you can, oh, I didn't see that before, or maybe you're just at a different point in your life. I don't know who said it or who I heard it from, but it's like sometimes you see like older people than you or parents or something, and they make like a silly little mistake, or it's why are they doing something like that? But then this person said to me, it's like it's their first time living life too. It's like everybody's living life for the first time. It's not everybody's living a different experience, and sometimes you learn different stuff at a different point in life, and it's like, yeah, it's everything's a constant learning and just getting better.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times that will happen, whether it's in school or in sports or sometimes in our jobs, where we have these terms that we use that are just like easy for me and you to understand
Right,
since
right,
we're
right.
in the same industry. But then somebody else comes and they have no clues, like
Mm-hmm.
what in the world is KPIs,
Yeah, yeah,
key performance indicators,
yeah.
when it comes to CPC, cost per click, and these are all marketing terms, and
Mm-hmm.
we're all like kind of like we're assuming that other people said, why don't they know that? It's like, well, the same reason I didn't know it at one
Yeah,
point
yeah,
in
yeah.
time, and I had to ask, or maybe I didn't ask, and I went home and I just searched all
Mm-hmm.
those terms on Google because I
Yeah.
was too afraid to ask. But it's like
Right.
we all have to start somewhere, and we have to be able to have that empathy for when people are starting
Mm-hmm.
somewhere, and you have to be able to see that. And that, I think that's I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why that is. Why it's so hard for us to see and have open eyes to why people don't understand what we're saying, or if there's a struggle at our job with a client who isn't happy with what's happening, and it oftentimes is because they had different expectations than what we had, or what they
Right.
had different expectations of what it would look like because they've never done it before or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. If you're coming to lease an apartment,
Mm-hmm.
or coming to buy their mice from the mice farm, it was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I didn't know what it was going to be or what it was
Yeah.
going to look like. And
Right.
it's about them learning, and they experience once and then they do it, and then they continue to grow and continue to learn, and we continue to evolve or progress, whatever term you want to use.
Right. And I think with that being said, it's if you've put your religious journey or your journey off with God and you keep saying it's something that I want to do, but you just keep putting it off and pushing it off, I guess this is kind of the first step. It's like we're starting this and we're going to keep to it. Is this is something that we care about, and we're going to make it something that we put out to do every week and show that we actually care about it, and just put that foot forward and say that this is just a journey that we're beginning and learning every week and just trying to be better, I guess.
Yeah. And gonna see where it goes and
Mm-hmm.
trust the process, and that God is out there. We do believe that He is created, and that there will be some type of guidance for each one of us individually, whether we help other people with anything, or maybe we don't. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's hit number chapter 27.
Alrighty.
It came to pass when Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, that he called Esau, his elder son. And he said to him, my son. And he said to him, here I am. And he said, behold, now I have grown old. I do not know the day of my death. So now sharpen your implements, your sword, and take your bow, and go forth to the field and hunt game for me, and make for me tasty foods as I like, and bring them to me, and I will eat, in order that my soul will bless you before I die. But Rebekah overheard when Isaac spoke to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt game to bring it. And Rebekah said to Jacob her son, saying, behold, I have heard your father speaking to Esau your brother, saying, bring me game and make me tasty foods, and I will eat, and I will bless you before the Lord before my death. And now, my son, hearken to my voice, to what I am commanding you. Go now to the flock, and take for me from there 2 choice kids, and I will make them tasty foods for your father as he likes. And you shall bring them to your father, that he may eat, in order that he bless you before his death. And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, whereas I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will touch me, and I will appear to him as a deceiver, and I will bring upon myself a curse and not a blessing. And his mother said to him, on me is your curse, my son. Only hearken to my voice and go. Take them for me. So he went, and he took, and he brought them to his mother, and his mother made tasty foods, as his father liked. And Rebekah took the costly garments of Esau, her elder son, which were with her in the house, and she dressed Jacob, her younger son. And the hides of the kids she put on his hands and on the smoothness of his neck. And she gave the tasty foods and the bread that she made into the hand of Jacob, her son. He came to his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? And Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you have spoken to me. Please rise, sit and eat of my game, so that your soul will bless me. And Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? And he said, because the Lord your God prepared it before me. And Isaac said to Jacob, please come closer, so that I may feel you, my son, whether you're really my son Esau or not. So Jacob drew near to Isaac his father, and he felt him. And he said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy like the hands of his brother Esau. And he blessed him. And he said, are you indeed my son Esau? And he said, I am. And he said, serve it to me, that I may eat of the game of my son, so that my soul will bless you. And he served him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and drank. And his father Isaac said to him, please come closer and kiss me, my son. And he came closer, and he kissed him, and he smelled the fragrance of his garments, and he blessed him. And he said, behold, the fragrance of my son is like the fragrance of a field, which the Lord has blessed. And may the Lord give you off the dew of the heavens, and of the fatness of the earth, and of the and of an abundance of grain and wine. Nations shall serve you, and kingdoms shall bow down to you. You shall be a master over your brothers, and your mother's son shall bow down to you. Those who curse you shall be cursed, and those who bless you shall be blessed. And it came to pass when Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and it came to pass Jacob had just left his father Isaac's presence, that his brother Esau came from his hunt. And he too had made tasty foods, and he brought them to his father. And he said to his father, let my father arise and eat of the game of his son, so that your soul will bless me. And his father Isaac said to him, who are you? And he said, I am your son, your firstborn, Esau. And Isaac shuddered, a great shudder, and he said, who then is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? And I ate everything while you had not yet come, and I blessed him. He too shall be blessed. When Esau heard his father's words, he cried out a great and bitter cry. And he said to his father, bless me too, O my father. And he said, your brother came with cunning and took your blessing. And he said, is it for this reason that he was named Jacob? For he has deceived me twice. He took my birthright, and behold now he has taken my blessing. And he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? And Isaac answered and said to Esau, behold, I made him a master over you, and I gave him all his brothers as servants, and I sustained him with corn and wine. So for you then, what shall I do, my son? And Esau said to his father, have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father. And Esau raised his voice and wept. And his father Isaac answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling place shall be the fat place of the earth and of the dew of the heaven from above. And you shall live by your sword, and you shall serve your brother. And it will be, when you grieve, that you will break his yoke off your neck. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing that his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, let the days of mourning for my father draw near. I will then kill my brother Jacob. And Rebekah was told of the words of Esau, her elder son. And she sent and called Jacob, her younger son. And she said to him, behold, your brother Esau regrets his relationship to you and wishes to kill you. And now, my son, hearken to my voice and arise. Flee to my brother Laban to Haran. And you shall dwell with him for a few days until your brother's wrath has subsided, until your brother's rage subsides from you, and he forgets what you did to him. And I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereft of both of you on one day? And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am disgusted with my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth like these, from the daughters of the land, of what use is life to me? So the first part there, when Isaac told Jacob to go get some food and bring it in, and then I don't know if you had noticed in their last chapter where Esau had chosen some wives and they weren't too pleased with them. Do you remember reading that?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that was the one thing where Rebecca wanted the blessing to go more towards Jacob.
Okay.
Some of the ideas and the thoughts have to do with the wives that he had uh, chose not being of their lineage or anything like that. So
Okay.
more of like the idol worship and those types of things that he was getting them from foreigners and stuff. And so oftentimes when that says that, that's what it has to do with.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that makes sense.
were you trying to steal your brother's inheritance,
No, not
Yaakov?
me. Not me.
No.
No.
Were you a heel grabber?
Nope, not this one.
You were pretty quick. You had to have pretty strong heels to be quick, I think.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't mean I gotta steal everything, though. Just
No,
because
I
I'm
know.
fast doesn't mean I have to be deceitful.
Steal bases.
Yeah, I can do that.
Did you have any things that stood out to you?
No, I mean, just basically what it says. It's Jacob prepares, um, uh, Jacob goes and gets the game, and then Re- is Rebecca the one that prepares it, right? And then
Yeah.
it's eventually served to Isaac, and yeah, it's just that whole idea of deceiving your father, your brother, everything. And I mean, Esau is pretty ticked off at him. It's like for for a pretty good reason. It's he stole his birthright, he stole his inheritance, he stole everything out of deceit, and he's pretty upset with him. I think for a rightful cause, I would say.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know the deeper things that were happening and going on, because there are thoughts that when it came to the birthright, that that day Esau had done some sinful things.
Mm,
He had done something with a woman. He had killed Nimrod, who was one of
okay.
the
Yeah.
mightiest warriors. And so this idea that Rebecca gave him his clothes. So the thought is that what Jacob was wearing during this time was the cloak that Esau had taken off of Nimrod after he had done that. And that's, again, these are outside of the Bible, other
Mm-hmm.
extra books and those types of things. Um,
Hmm.
but that those are some of the thoughts with that.
Okay. Hmm. Is there anything else you wanted to add on to that chapter, or any?
Let me see. No, I think those were, you know, really the main points.
Okay. Do you have any closing thoughts? We ran a little bit longer than we were initially going to, but I think this is kind of the introduction to this new one, so took a little bit longer. But do you have
Yeah,
any?
we introduced the podcast, kind of
Mm-hmm.
going into what we're planning on doing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, I don't know how much of an application there really was in what we read today to be able
Right.
to, fit into us. And I would say that's the one thing I'm really trying to figure out what that looks like and how that works. And so, um, yeah, I think there's things that can come from today is the honoring of the parents, but we didn't get deep into too much of the
Right.
verses about anything else like that. So no, I
Yeah.
don't. I don't really have much to share.
Okay.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody who's listening. We hope you guys enjoy. And if you have any questions or you have things that you would like to share, we'd love to hear them in the comments below, or just being able to interact with us. We again are looking to connect with people who fear God and would like to unite on that specific topic, no matter where you're coming from or what your denomination or religious background is.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think we mentioned this yet, but this is going to be separate from the Monty's Gems. This first episode will be uploaded there, but we're kind of working behind the scenes on getting a name to it, creating a separate platform to kind of keep them separate from each other, and then building a separate community for that. So still working on that behind the scenes, but haven't picked a name quite yet, but to be determined. We'll figure it out soon. So
Sure will.
alrighty. See you, everybody.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Yep.